to walk you through the typesetting of a typical student submission to the Sparks Journal for undergraduate research in creative works. And the ultimate goal here is to end up with a PDF version of the submitted work that can be attached to the HTML version on the Sparks Journal website, so students and other visitors can download easily shareable and archivable copies of their work. All right, so to get started here, you need to have organized in a folder all the documents that were actually submitted by the student. So the student I'm working with here is named Graham Scott, and he's a political science student. So this is actually the work that he submitted, we're going to end today with the finished product, which will then be turned into a PDF and attached to the HTML version of his submission, which we'll work on in a subsequent tutorial. All right, so what I'm gonna, he actually submitted multiple versions of his work. He submitted a version with PNG versions of the tables he has embedded, and that's good because I asked the students that they need to submit JPEG or PNG versions of their figures and tables and other images so that they can be embedded in the HTML on the HTML version of their work. But I've done a little preliminary work here with Graham Scott's submission, and the tables are a little clunky, and the PNGs that he sent are fairly low resolution, so I'm not going to work with them yet. I'm going to work with the original tables. And open that up. All right. So typically when students submit their work, I have a template that I prepared for them, and they're supposed to abide by that template. They submit, the goal is to get their work with as little amount of formatting and extraneous content as possible to make it as easy to transpose into its finished form. All right, so the other thing we need, so I got that open, and it's also nice to have a huge computer like I have here to do this. This computer is a little old, so while I'm recording the screen, it's a little slow. Got to bear with the pinwheel from time to time. The other thing you want to open up is I have a copy of the article template. This is the Mac version of this template. And I'm going to open that up, and this is going to be turned into the final version of this typesetted work. Okay. Minimize that. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to work on here is the header. And the header is composed of the author's last name and first initial. So that would be Scott, first initial G. And then the publication month and year. This is going to be published in May of 2016. And now what I have to do is I have to create a URL, and this URL won't be set until I publish the HTML version on the Sparks Journal website. But the URL is a part of the PDF version as well, so that people know where to find the online version if they want, if they download the PDF version. So typically, what I want to do here is I want the URL to be descriptive in some way and unique, but also short. And so I base it on the title of the work. And the title here is Voter Drive, Do Proportional Representation Systems Hold the Key to Higher Voter Turnout? That's very long, so I'm just going to shorten it to the first two words. Voter_drive at sparksjournal.org. All right, so no spaces. URLs cannot have spaces. So I use an underscore to instead of a space. All right, done with the header. And I didn't make that a hyperlink. I guess I could, but I decided for stylistic reasons to just leave it as a plain text URL. All right, so now, title of the work. Now, the nice thing about having the template here is all the fonts and font sizes are already specified. the headings and some of the features of the text are in Titanium Web regular font. I don't like using bold fonts. I like to use different size fonts to denote different levels of the narrative, different levels of sections and things like that. So the title is 22 font, and I should be able to now select the title from Graham's submission and copy, Command C, and then come over here, and if I select the title and do edit, paste, and match formatting, it should match the formatting. Okay. The next part is the byline. The byline starts with author's first name and last and academic department. So I'll copy and paste that in there. And Shepherd University is the institution. And I like to write department of in front of the department. Just a standard I adopted as we go through and have many submissions from many different departments. All right, next is the abstract. Every work needs to have an abstract. So this is a little bit unfortunate here. His abstract is italicized. It should just be plain text. Shouldn't be a big deal though. When I copy and paste, the italics will go with it. Copy and paste, match formatting. See, the italics go with it, so then I just have to got an extra space in there too. Just highlight it all and remove the italics. Now you notice the abstract is indented an extra ½ inch on the left and the right, but it is justified throughout to set it off a little bit. All right, so that's that. Okay, so now we get into the meat, the body of his text, and all of his text has section titles, and the first section is introduction. So I'm just going to delete this part of the template here. All right, and then I'm going to make a couple copies of this generic section text. Let's make a couple copies. Okay, because he's got multiple sections. All right. So the first section is introduction, and it's got some extra formatting as well, bold text, underline. So instead of copying and pasting, I'm just going to write out what it is. And now his introduction is 1, 2, 3 paragraphs. And I'll take that and I'll paste that over top of this holder text, the lorem ipsum text, which is some generic placeholder text that typesetters use. I think it's a part of a speech by some famous Roman, Cicero or something like that. All right, so something happened here that often happens for some strange reason. When I copy and paste and match format, the indentations get lost at the paragraphs. So I'm going to go through here, and he's got 3 paragraphs. The Economist, although political participation, and with the problem of low voter turnout. So I'm going to manually indent them. Okay. So now I'll just repeat this for subsequent sections. Let me just quickly do the next 2 parts of the literature review. Add a few more sections here. You can copy over. All right. So the next section is literature review, and again, I'm not going to copy and paste because there's underlining in bold, so I'm just going to type it literature review. All right, and literature review is 1 paragraph. See, I just can't just copy and paste. Good example of what not to do. I got to paste and match formatting. There we go. All right, so literature review was 1 paragraph, indent, and I'm done there. Okay, so now, so this particular work, Graham Scott's work here, Literature review is a section title, but then this section has sections, and the way I know is because his top level sections are bold, and then the subsections are just regular font. And so the way I'm going to denote those subsections in the typeset version here is I'm just going to use a smaller font size to represent subsections. Okay, so this subsection is the electoral systems. All right, and just like the title, the section titles and subsection titles are typeset using the Titilium Web regular font. All right, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Whoa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. So paste and match formatting right at the top of there. And yeah, I lost my paragraphs. So the first one, a vast majority. Second one, numerous. Sources. Next one, political efficacy. Next one, PR systems. Next one, proportional. Next one, finally. Next one, aside. And that's it. Okay. Boy, I bet this is just super exciting to watch me do this. All right, so anyway, now I would continue to do this for the rest of the sections and subsections in his text. I'm going to skip ahead and show you something a little bit different. So he's got tables, 3 different tables embedded in his work. We're going to work on that last. But I want to skip ahead and show you he's got an appendix as well. And typically the appendix is going to come before the references. But because his appendix is just this one huge table, I set it apart, and it did come before the references, but it's set on its own pages. I'll show you that in the finished product later. And references. Okay, so I want to show you the typesetting of the references because every work comes with different format of the references because it's the style of the references is discipline specific. And the Sparks journal hasn't adopted a specific standard for formatting references. Instead, we just allow the students to format their references using something that's appropriate for their specific discipline. So for political science here, he's using a format where there's lots of italics. There's even some URLs that are embedded here, and we'll try to preserve those as well. But it's also got this hanging indentation after the first line. So there's lots of stuff going on there. All right, so let me show you how to do this. All right, so next section is references. It's less than ideal to have the section heading as the last line on a column, but that's okay. Sometimes I'll go back and add spaces to fix that, but it's not that big of a deal. So here what I want to do is I want to preserve all the formatting except for the font if it's not Times New Roman. So I'm going to make sure that everything is Times New Roman in 12-point font. And then I will copy and then come over here in the references section and paste and match formatting. Okay. Well, so see what happened. It indented the first line instead of the second line. That's a pain. It kept the URLs intact, and it kept italices intact. All right. So I'm gonna have to go and manually remove the indentations There's also a line break between each reference, and that's part of the style that he's adopted here, so I'm going to preserve that as well. I'm not going to delete those lines between references. All right, so remove those indentations. Okay, so now I need to add the hanging indentation after the first line. So the way to do this is to highlight the entire text and then go on up here. Oop. Nope. And, oh, come on. Word. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to select just the second triangle here. There we go. So I've got that hanging indentation. Okay. But the first line is, so I just moved the second triangle half an inch to get the hanging indent correct. All right. So there's the references. It's not beautiful, but it'll do. Okay. All right. So now let's look at the tables he supplied. Now he supplied two versions: the Word version of the tables and the PNG versions of the table, which I'm not going to use because they're kind of bad resolution. All right, I'm not going to try to use them right now. All right, so his first table. Another thing to fix here is, tables have captions with identifiers for a reason, so you can reference them in the text. So here he says the following table. It should just say table 1. So wherever this appears in the text of the final version, I will change it if I see it to table 1 because it's referenced here. All right. So I got to get table 1 into the final version here. It's not going to look good if I crush it down into one column. I want it to span both columns, and that's kind of clunky to do when it comes to something that's not an image. And the way you got to do this is you first got to create a text box where you want the table to appear. So in the final version, it's not going to be in here. It's going to be in a different section. But just to demonstrate how this is done, let me put it in right here. So I'm going to make a text box that's 6.5 inches wide, so it spans both columns. All right, then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to copy this table and paste it into that text box. All right. So now the next thing I'm going to do is select the entire table, and under Table Properties, I'm going to add a little bit of a border between the text and the edge of each cell, because that looks good. Click Automatically Resize to fit contents, so it resizes the table to fit the contents. I think it looks better if the content in the cells is centered, especially something like this. All right. Now, the table itself, I'm going to make wider. Oops, let's undo. There we go. Fill up the entire section. Now, typically there'd be a caption underneath the table or figure, but this particular submission has the caption on top of the table, and I guess that's okay. But to make it conform to the Sparks Journal style guide, table and figure captions need to have the Titilium font at 12 point. So I'll change that. So now it conforms. And now I'll make the text box smaller, bring the text up, and I'm done. Okay, so I would redo this for the other two tables as well. Now, table 3 is a beast because it spans 2 separate pages. So I actually, when I typesetted it, I had to basically recreate it and make it, like I said, I made the appendix on its own page and went from there. All right, so let me minimize this and let me show you the final version then. Okay, and the final version, I renamed the article template to Scott_2016 to give it a unique identifying name. And let me double click on it to open it. And there it is. Okay, so if we look at, at this point, I'd want to go back and check to make sure that I didn't miss any sections or miss any text. Typically we assume that the originating department has done a good job of proofreading reading these works, so we're not proofreading these for grammatical correctness or spelling mistakes. But if something is discovered, I definitely correct it. And occasionally there's a stylistic change, like changing the words "the following table" to "table 1," for example, to make it easier to read. Okay, so it's got his abstract. The abstract doesn't have, it's just got this block indentation. It doesn't have a title to go along with it, just this block indentation set it apart. Intro, lit review, electoral system, subsection, economics, education, top level political communication. Nope, that's not a top level. Okay, subsection, voting laws, term limits, and then hypothesis. It's a top level section. Argument, research design has subsections: dependent variable, electoral systems variables, and control variables. And there's table 1. There it is. Methodology, and then discussions and findings. It's a new section, top level section. Table 2, again, I changed the following table to table 2 because it's easier to reference that way. Now here I forgot to do something. I forgot to change this to Titilium. There we go. Okay. Table 2. All right, then conclusions. And then here's the appendix, and it's set off all by itself on its own page. And what I was able to do is get Albania through Lithuania on one page, and then I made table 3 continued on the next page, Luxembourg to United States. All right. And then the references, I set those apart as well because it just made sense to come after the appendix that way. All right, so that's the finished product. I'll save it. The last step is to save this Word document as a PDF. And the way to do this depends on if you're on Mac or Windows. If you're on a Mac, what you do is you click Print, and then in the Print dialog window, there's an option to Save as PDF. And just navigate to this folder, Published Work, Spring 16, Graham Scott, and I'm going to call it the same thing, Scott 2016 PDF. Done. 13 pages. All right, so that's a quick and dirty example tutorial walking you through the typesetting, going from the documents that the student actually submits to the finished PDF, typeset PDF version of their work that can be attached to the HTML version of their work and downloaded. And if I say so myself, they look beautiful. I think the students really appreciate having a nice, professional looking PDF version of their work that they can download and share. All right, thanks.